Maxx Crosby might be on the trade block. We'll tell you why the Cowboys should or shouldn't trade for him next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to this bonus edition of the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool, and we are discussing Maxx Crosby, who sounds like he could be on his way out in Las Vegas. We've been talking about this for a while, Landon, but let's start with this. Why should the Cowboys trade for Crosby, and what do you think it would take to get a deal done?
Well, let's start with the latter part first, because that seems to be the kind of changing news, right? It sounds like there was a report that was it the Seahawks that offered 2 first-round picks to the Raiders?
It might have been, yeah.
Well, somebody, I think it was the Seahawks, when we were talking about this whole situation earlier near the trade deadline. Apparently, the Seahawks offered 2 first-round picks to Vegas, and Vegas said no. So, and the chatter, at least from the 4-letter networks, is that they could try to command more than the Micah Parsons trade to get him out of there, which that's outrageous if that's the case. And just to be clear, like, we'll talk about the downside of that, but that's pretty crazy. So
no, but that's also what you should be telling teams right now about Maxx Crosby, if you're even thinking.
Of course, that is absolutely a good point, right? You gotta ask for the moon, otherwise you'll never get it. Or after the stars and you'll land in the moon.
There you go.
So yeah, why should they do it? Well, the Cowboys are not a very good defense, and Maxx Crosby is very good at defense. And sometimes it's as simple as that. But I mean, the truth of the matter is that you have a need for this, specific kind of body type a little bit. I think that you're looking for somebody who could come in and be a huge top end pass rusher, but also give you some help on the run. I don't think you're necessarily trying to go out and get another kind of pass rush specialist. And that's not what Crosby is. Crosby's a guy who can play all 3 downs for you. And probably will try to sneak out there on the punt team too. I mean, the punt block team, if you let him. Like,
I think there was like 4 straight years he played 98% of the defensive snaps for the Raiders. Like, he legitimately does not come off the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the dude loves ball, and he shows it by playing a ton of snaps. So I think he's an incredibly versatile top end player, good against the run, good against the pass. As you and I have discussed, maybe not that top echelon or that second tier of pass rusher, but
yeah, he's not in Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett level of pass rusher,
but
he is as an overall player, though.
Yes, and I think he is a very, very good. He's probably that next tier, right?
Yes.
And then in the DeMarcus Lawrence tier of run defenders, right? Like,
yes,
truly top end elite the run defender. So those are the pros there for why you would want him. Obviously, he, there's some other aspects that come with it, but I also think the last thing I'll just throw in there, a leader in the sense that on the field, right? Like, the guy that plays 1,000+ snaps every single year on the defensive line is an inspiration to your room. So certainly adding a guy like that who's going to set the example and set the tone for the rest of your defensive line room.
And I understand the argument of the Cowboys need an edge rusher. If you draft one in round 1, you could get a really good player, but typically that's a position that takes some time to develop. If you trade one of these picks and maybe a little bit more to bring him in, you get a ready-made all-pro edge rusher that you're pairing with Quinnen Williams and Osa Odighizuwa and Kenny Clark and Donovan Ezeraku. And while you still have needs on the back end, now you have a dominant defensive line that can create pressure with the front 4. You've got some guys that you like as backups with Solomon Thomas and James Houston, and I'm assuming Jadeveon Clowney will come back, and you have a Super Bowl caliber defensive line. The cost is going to be a lot, but it's like the Quinnen Williams deal. You're getting an awesome player for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to kind of come up with reasons to why this would be good for the Cowboys. Now, the reality of the rubber meets the road, that might be a different conversation altogether, though.
Yeah, let's talk about why the Cowboys shouldn't make this trade next. This episode is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I ever needed to hire someone for this show, I would go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I needed, which is real experience and not just some resume buzzwords. So spend more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement that it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The winter games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for the events that you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the winter games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports that you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of the curling matches that start slow but somehow get more intense, speed skating races decided by a few inches, hockey games that feel different right from the opening faceoff. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. All right, let's talk about Maxx Crosby. Why shouldn't the Cowboys make this trade? There's a lot of reasons why they should, but why should they maybe exercise some caution here?
Well, first of all, I'd like to go back a little bit and talk about the fact that, we kind of, or at least I did, I can't remember where you stood, but we both, I think, endorsed going to get Maxx Crosby around the trade deadline. I think that the situation is a little different than where it was then. Obviously, he's a little bit older. His contract's in a different spot. And the other thing, he's banged up. He's coming off. I mean, I think he's going to be fine. But again, he is going to be 29 years old, or he is 29 years old, I think. And the positives that we mentioned in the first part of the show, that he plays a ton of snaps, can also be spun the other way. He has played a lot of snaps, and he's going to be 29. So there, and as we mentioned, he's currently injured. He's going to be fine for training camp, from what I understand. I think even OTAs. But the point being that, it could be time where you start to see it start to take its toll here. The obvious thing that we mentioned in the first segment as well is the cost is way more than what we were anticipating at the trade deadline last year. We were hearing something closer to a first rounder, maybe a first rounder is some change. And I think a first rounder is where if I remember correctly, I think a first rounder is where you and I were holding pretty firm at that point. Now you're another year, told on that contract. And the truth of the matter is that the price hasn't maybe gone up. It just was higher than we all thought it was, right? If they're turning down the Seahawks for 2 first-round picks, I mean, that's just way more than I'm willing to pay for Maxx Crosby, right? On top of the fact that I don't know whether he is going to want a new contract, but it's obvious that most guys that get traded usually end up getting a new contract. So, yeah, I just think that it's a lot of investment for a position in which, you feel like you could solve with a couple of different guys, and you feel like there are answers in the draft that you like a lot. This is a deep class. I don't know that you need to even though you're in a win now mode, I don't know that you need to necessarily incur the cost of investing all of that, incur the risk, of investing all of that in a 29-year-old pass rusher who is currently injured. And I think there's a high likelihood that he's going to be a better player immediately, but there is also a likelihood that you've used a lot of your resources that you needed in other spots as well, and you've got a hurt 29-year-old defensive end who isn't helping you for 3 or 4 games a season.
The other thing is the Cowboys, they took their swing with Quinnen Williams. They traded a first and a second round pick for Quinnen. You can't build a team trading away first round picks every single year unless you are getting guys that are like on rookie contracts and that you're getting like multiple years of value. That's not the case here. Like Quinnen Williams is going to want a new deal either this offseason or next offseason. Maxx Crosby is already on a new deal. And again, it's fairly team friendly, but it's not like it's a rookie contract. You're paying Osa Odighizuwa. We think they're going to pay, continue to keep Kenny Clark. Now you're talking about having the most expensive defensive line in the NFL by a mile. And that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing to invest money on your defense, but you might be investing too many resources to one unit, especially when linebacker, corner, and safety all need a lot of help. If it only costs 1 first-round pick and that's the price, I think you can stomach it. But the idea of a first and X plus maybe a new deal, I think the Cowboys should pass here.
Yeah, they have the opportunity cost of lost by giving away 2 talented, cheap roster spots in your 2 first-round picks when you have top-end talent like the quarterback, the wide receiver, maybe even another wide receiver. You just can't afford that. You need those picks in order to be able to secure the talent at the cost saving that you get with the first-round pick. And you can't do that if you give them away for a really expensive player. And
the other thing, as we talked about earlier this week, is there's a lot of quality defensive ends in free agency this year. Hold on to the picks, maybe spend $30 million combined on 2 edge rushers, and I think you'll have a better defense. And again, that's acknowledging that Maxx Crosby is an awesome player, but it might be wise for the Cowboys to pass here. That's it for today's show. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Check out the new Everydayer Club, LockedOnCowboys.supercast.com to join the club. And we will see you guys right back here on Monday.